Another 24 hours of absolutely nothing signings-wise at Tottenham Hotspur, and now less than a week until the transfer window slams shut. The temperature is ratcheting up on Daniel Levy, and this is the loudest the noise has ever been when it comes to the media and fans joining forces and calling for change. So what can Levy do about it? Well, they could spend some money and support their manager, but it seems there's either an inability to do it or a reticence to do it, or both. Meanwhile, Manchester United are about to sign one of Spurs' biggest transfer targets. What a time to be alive. I'll be discussing the latest Premier League transfer rumours, as well as bringing you the main points from a damning Athletic article that shows Daniel Levy's recent decisions at Spurs in an even worse light. All this and more on today's edition of Daily Premier League Transfer News. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Please do give this a like. Please do subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to my channel. Daily Premier League Transfer News during the window and during the summer. Always starting, of course, with my team, Tottenham Hotspur, although at the moment, frankly, slightly embarrassing to admit when you're a Spurs fan. Things are so bad. I'm getting incredibly close to 15,000 subscribers now, guys, trying to get up there as quickly as I can. I've got a really great, engaged community. Come and join us and get me close to that 15,000. But let's start with the transfer talk regarding Tottenham. And one of the Spanish journalists come out and said that Spurs and Arsenal are both willing to pay the €58 million release clause for 22-year-old Bilbao and Spain wonder kid. Frankly, what a player he is, Nico Williams. Now, for me, I think who wouldn't be willing to pay the €58 million release clause? But as far as I'm concerned, Nico Williams should and will have his choice of any club around Europe. To me, I'm slightly worried that this might be one of those things where Tottenham have started leaking rumours about players they're interested in or are willing to meet release clauses about because the press around Daniel Levy and ENIC and the optics around the club are so bad that they're putting out some of these leaks. We've seen it so many times before. Back in the day, let's not forget Fernando Morientes, Eden Hazard, all the rest, all the big rumours of these players we get excited about. Paulo Dybala, oh, it's nearly going to happen, or we're willing to meet the release clause, or we want to pay for it, and it never ever happens. And Nico Williams, listen, if Nico Williams came to Tottenham Hotspur at any time but this January, I mean, I will come on here and do this video naked, frankly, because it's just not going to happen. Spurs are 15th in the Premier League, and the fact that some of these stories are coming out strikes me as completely obscene. The story that does keep doing the rounds and keeps going on, and Matt Law did a big piece about it yesterday, is that of Southampton winger Tyler Dibling, as well as Lille midfielder Angel Gomez. They are the two players who Spurs have held talks over as they attempt to set up deals for ahead of the summer transfer window. And of course, Matt Law says they're also trying to secure at least one new outfield signing this month. Well, I mentioned these two players yesterday, didn't I? The latest talk is that they are looking to sign Tyler Dibling this January, but if that proves beyond them, the club will look to get an agreement in place for him to move in the summer. And also, Paul O'Keefe has come out and said that from what he understands, they're looking to do the deal for Dibling now to get ahead of other clubs and then loan him back to Southampton. I mean, those are deals that have worked well for us previously, aren't they? Bergvall as one example. But honestly, I feel like now is Daniel Levy and Scott Munn, are they not understanding the depth of frustration and upset within the Tottenham fan base? If they buy a player now and loan him back to another club when we desperately need bodies through the door now, is that not just literally saying, we do not trust this manager, we don't trust that he's going to beat Liverpool in that second leg and that we're going to get into the final, and therefore we're going to sack him, so we're not going to bring in players now when we don't know if they're going to suit the next manager? It's such a limbo that Tottenham are in and that Daniel Levy has got us in. It's completely mad. And I can't even think, I don't know, let me know in the comments, I can't even think of a situation with another club, certainly not another club of our size, and in terms of the kind of revenue and the finances that we've got, getting themselves in such a ridiculous state of affairs where you're kind of stuck in no man's land, not willing to pull the trigger one way or the other. Matt Law also said Evan Ferguson, who's been linked with a loan move to Spurs, I've talked about it on a number of my videos, he would be reluctant to join Tottenham given that he could soon find himself as third choice when Solanke does return. So I would expect it to be more likely that Evan Ferguson would join someone like West Ham probably now that they've got Graham Potter there. He's obviously worked with Evan Ferguson before, and West Ham are short of a genuine striker. Also, Matt Law said in his piece, Tottenham believe that changing another manager would leave the club in a difficult position as they attempt to build something lasting. Now, I don't have a problem with that. If you're going to properly stick with Ange, say it and spend money for him. You know, we had, 9 senior first-team players available for the last Europa League game? So fine, if you're going to stick with him and try and build something lasting, then don't make it look like you're absolutely in no man's land, unwilling to make a decision one way or the other. And then this is no surprise from what Matt Law said as well. There's frustration from staff behind the scenes that outfield players have not been brought in to try to alleviate some of the problems. Well, you know, frustration behind the scenes at Spurs within the staff and unbelievable frustration from the fan base. Like I said in the opening, it's all kind of building up where, you know, social media is now getting kind of slipping into what's happening in the home stadium, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, with the noise that was coming in terms of those Levy out chants at the weekend. That was louder than I've ever heard it, for sure. And now the media are joining in as well. The pundits, a lot of talk on Match of the Day 2 on Sky Sports, in all of the reputable newspapers, broadsheets, online forums, etc. Everybody joining and saying, actually, even from afar, people can now see that Daniel Levy is holding the club back. And what seems to be happening is that they are almost plumping the club up for a sale by kind of bringing down the wages. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, the best chance you've got at a good sale surely is if the team are doing well on the pitch. That would be your best chance, surely. Anyway, I'm going to get into that in a second because I'm going to talk through some of the most prescient points from this incredible Athletic article that talks about some of the stats behind Spurs' decline. Just before I do, another story coming out this morning is that Niko Kovac, former Bayern Munich, Werder Bremen manager and Croatian national manager, is a manager who's admired by Spurs, but he looks set to join Dortmund. So that's someone who obviously they've been looking at as they do their succession planning for Ange, be that if Ange is going to leave soon or in the summer or maybe further down the line. Kovac was the manager who beat Tottenham 7-2 when he was at Bayern Munich at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, a game I was at in the kind of end days of Maurizio Pochettino's reign. Okay, so this article in The Athletic I've been talking about was written by Jack Pitt-Brooke and Jay Harris. Make sure you listen to the View from the Lane podcast, which is their Athletic podcast hosted by Danny Kelly. If you don't already, it's one of the best Spurs podcasts. But this article that came out yesterday is a real deep dive into the problems at Tottenham right now. And I'm going to kind of take you through some of the most important points, but I'm kind of concentrating on the way that ENIC and Daniel Levy have streamlined the club. Like I said, kind of plumping the club up for a sale. They've streamlined it financially, and now how that has affected our ability to get the results on the pitch. So Sunday's Premier League defeat to Leicester was our 13th in 23 matches in the Premier League this season. That means we've lost 56.5% of our league games this season, and if we were to maintain that rate over the remaining 15 fixtures, that would be the worst losing record of any Tottenham team in the club's 142-year history. That's mad, isn't it? That is completely mad. It is worth talking about, I think, and maybe it's something that I haven't brought up nearly enough. Tottenham's inability to even pick up draws, to pick up points. It's either that we win by a lot of goals or we lose pretty much by the odd goal. Obviously, the Liverpool game is not an example of that, where we lost, 5-3 or 6-3 or whatever it was. But you know, teams who are in relegation scraps also pick up draws here and there. They fight for results, and they realise how important every point can be. Tottenham are almost in like in terms of the league, in a state of complacency where they're like, oh, we'll keep playing our football, and you know, if we get the second and third goal once we've gone ahead, then you know we'll end up winning 4 or 5-1. And I said that at the weekend when we went 1-0 up against Leicester. I said, you know, we've got to get the second goal here. We've got to get the third goal here, because if Leicester get the equaliser, they'll have momentum and they've got more legs because they haven't played in Europe in the week. And that's exactly what happened. They scored 2 in 5 minutes and we lose the game. So it's kind of, I'm not suggesting that I want us to just get draws every week, but what I'm saying is, you've got to start realizing where you are, like where your level is. And we're playing football as if our level is still kind of trying to get into the Champions League like last season, getting in 5th place. But no, our level is absolutely not that anymore. We are a bottom half club right now, and we've got to fight and scrap for draws where we can, and work harder and put more balls in the box, frankly. And I don't know, I guess it's hard. It was hard because we took Richarlison off, but it was a relief to see us get a cross in the box for that Richarlison goal, because we have not been doing that nearly enough. Even when Solanke was fit, who's brilliant in the air, we don't get enough balls in the box. And what's the difference with the teams that we play against? Endless balls in the box, knowing that Spurs struggle to defend from crosses, refusing to stop crosses, and then also finding it very difficult to mark our back post. Anyway, continuing with what Jack Pitbrook and Jay Harris are saying in this article, Spurs may not have won a trophy since 2008. But in the 16 seasons since, Tottenham have never finished outside the Premier League's top 8 and have been 6th or better on 13 occasions. So, you can say one thing about Daniel Levy's lack of success in terms of trophy winning, and that's true. But in terms of securing us as a kind of top level, what's known as the Big Six club, that is where Tottenham have been previously. And that marks kind of a disconnect between where the fan base and the club are, where the club want us to be as far up the table as possible, get into that Champions League for the kind of money it brings. And of course, that does come with it then the opportunity to buy better players and to be deemed as a bigger club around Europe, etc., etc. But the fans have just said quite regularly, certainly in the last 5-6 years since that Champions League final, but there's been no trophy winning. And that is what they wanted, even to the point, I mentioned it a few times, where a lot of fans have said, I'd be happy for us to have a shit season in the league and win a trophy. Well, your chickens are coming home to roost this season, because we're still in all the in all the cup competitions, and that has meant we've had no rest whatsoever midweeks, and now our league form has dropped off a cliff and we're in 15th place. After Sunday's humiliating loss to Leicester, Jack Pitbrook goes on, data giants Opta give them just an 11.5% chance of even finishing in the top 10 this season. And that would involve an incredible change of form, wouldn't it, to get back up there? Anyway, so that shows how we've dropped off a cliff. But now, in terms of talking about the Deloitte money figures that were released last week and the kind of the exacts of that, Tottenham have been discussed, as I mentioned, as one of the top clubs in the Premier League for the last 15 years or so. But that seems to have gone now in terms of what is happening in terms of our spend on wages particularly. Spurs are now in 7th among Premier League clubs on wage spend at £222 million, which is down from £251 million a year earlier. And that represents losing players like Tanguy Ndombele, Harry Kane, Hugo Lloris, etc. We are now behind Aston Villa, who are in 6th place on the wage bill list, and they spend £256 million on their salaries. That is £34 million more than Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs and Arsenal over the last kind of 10 years or so have been pretty much neck and neck on wages, but Arsenal have suddenly taken a huge jump forward at £327 million. So that's £105 million more than Tottenham are currently spending annually on wages. And Villa and Newcastle are now Tottenham's closest competitors when it comes to wage spend, rather than what was previously known as the Big Five clubs, that being, Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur and Everton, who are well out of it these days. The Big Five is what it was kind of called back in the late 80s and early 90s. And this, for me, is where I will say once again, this is where the stadium build has to come in. Arsenal have had the benefit of being in their stadium for nearly 20 years, and therefore in the last few years, certainly since 2019, 2018, when they first spent big on Nicola Pepe at £75 million, that's when they've really increased their outlay on fees and wages. And Tottenham are now still way behind again, because I think that stadium build has more to do with our finances than any of us believe. And, like I've said before, Levy says it won't affect us, but I think it clearly does. And it's to do with our credit rating. And it's to do with Levy as well, wanting the credit rating to be absolutely at its top billing in case we can get some investment or a sale. Tottenham's wages to turnover ratio last season was at 42%. Only 42% of our turnover was spent on wages. It's the lowest of all the clubs assessed by Deloitte in that money list. That means they run more sustainably than their rivals, and are less exposed to risk if anything goes wrong. And this is where fans get frustrated, isn't it? Because when fans think about football, they want their clubs to take risks. It seems mad, actually, that Levy has appointed a manager on the pitch who he's literally saying, to dare is to do, we want you to take risks, but we never take risks in terms of the business side of the club, in terms of what we can spend on the pitch, in terms of the wages we're willing to spend. And that seems like a huge disconnect, doesn't it? Meanwhile, and this is the real kicker, while all this is happening, and we know, don't we, that Tottenham Hotspur have pretty much the most expensive season ticket in the league. Well, this is what they said in the piece in The Athletic. Meanwhile, last year, Spurs increased season ticket prices by 6% and made changes to senior concessions. Their most expensive adult season ticket cost a staggering £2,367, which does not exactly scream good value for money when they have not won a home Premier League game since November the 3rd. The Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust plan to talk about the performance of the current ownership at their annual general meeting next Monday. Meanwhile, also, Daniel Levy, the highest paid director or owner of a football club by far, by almost 3 times as much as anybody else. So how can he justify it? That's the problem. How can he justify all of the trimming and the plumping of the club in terms of, bringing it down for a perfect sale or perfect investment when he's not bringing down his own wage, and he's putting up the season ticket prices, and at the same time unwilling to spend money on the pitch in terms of wages? It just doesn't work, and it doesn't make sense. And because there's no... And it's never going to happen, of course it's not, but, there's no messaging from the club saying, oh yeah, well, this is what we're doing because we need a sale or whatever. It would never happen, of course it would never happen, but fans are just left in the dark, meanwhile spending all their money on going to watch the games, or even spending money on their Sky or TNT Sports subscription so that they can watch Tottenham, spending all their time thinking about it. Supporting a football club is your break from reality. It's your release from your day-to-day dirge. And unfortunately, the way that Daniel Levy, and as you know, if you watch my videos, I've never been staunch ENIC out or Levy out or ENIC in or Levy in. I'm just looking at things from afar. And the grass can always be greener, and you can get, yourself in trouble if you change things and think it's automatically going to be better, and then it isn't. But the way I'm looking at Spurs at the moment under Levy and ENIC is kind of similar to how Newcastle fans got with Mike Ashley in the end, which is it's kind of the optics are obvious. The optics are absolutely obvious that the club is not being run for success on the pitch at the moment. And that is why I'm pleased that the media and social media and all the pundits and everyone's coming together and talking more about the noise, kind of the anti-ENIC and anti-Levy noise, but hopefully something has to change at some point. And I'd be happy for that change to be Daniel Levy to be come out or even privately just be okay, I've made mistakes and I've got to invest. I've got to invest in the club, on the pitch more. I've got to pay more in wages. That is the change I would most love to see. And it's just hard to see how he justifies it. I don't know. Anyway, guys, before I go on to some more wide-ranging Premier League transfer news, once again, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, if you like what I do, please do give it a like, and please do subscribe to my channel for daily Premier League transfer news, always starting with the news from my beloved team Spurs, of course. And also, you can become a member, just £1 a month. All the details how are in the description box below. But let's go over to Old Trafford. United feel they are going to get the Patrick Dorgu deal done from Lecce in the next 24 or 48 hours. They are confident and optimistic after further talks. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. Bayer Leverkusen made contact with Manchester City over a loan with a possible permanent transfer for their England under-21 midfielder James McAtee. Pep Guardiola will not stand in his way if he wants to join the German champions. So Xabi Alonso looking to get another young academy starlet out of Manchester City over to Germany, and that has proven so successful, hasn't it, for players so far, like Jadon Sancho, for instance, and Jamie Gittins over at Dortmund now. Aston Villa in direct talks with Chelsea over João Felix. As far as I'm concerned with João Felix, he keeps joining clubs. He gets these big moves over and over again, but he never ever seems to get in anyone's starting team. Villa also have agreed personal terms with Chelsea and French defender Axel Disasi. So some of Chelsea's big signings kind of not really working out, and they're willing to get rid of them. But let's see what happens, whether they're actually more likely to be loan deals, because Chelsea obviously have most of these players on such hugely long contracts. Meanwhile, Chelsea are considering moves for Leipzig and Slovenia forward Benjamin Sesko and Munich and France forward Matthias Tell, after deciding that they need forwards this January. We're into the last week of the transfer window. There is some talk, actually, just bringing it back to Spurs, that Tottenham may be waiting to see what happens in the Europa League final league matches this coming Thursday, because then some clubs who will drop out of the Europa League will apparently need to make sales, and Tottenham will look to try and pick them off. I mean, if that's true, isn't that just so classic of Tottenham and Daniel Levy, just always looking for cheap options and therefore leaving Ange Postecoglou and the fans short of players in the rest of January. Meanwhile, Brentford considering a move for former Chelsea defender Andreas Christensen, although he wants to fight for his place at Barcelona. I like Christensen. He's been rumoured to be on Tottenham's list. I wouldn't be afraid of getting him in as a fourth choice, and maybe even better, a centre-back this January. And if Brentford are going for him, then maybe Spurs should be as well. Meanwhile, over at Bournemouth, what a season they're having. Real Madrid, Munich and Juventus interested in Dean Huyson, their centre-half, who was on Tottenham's list this summer. Tottenham looks like they made a boo-boo not bringing him in. Also, Newcastle interested in Ilya Zabani, but they won't be able to get him over the line this January, and a summer deal is more likely. And then over to South London, Arsenal leading the race for Rosenborg and Norwegian under-21 international Sverre Nypan, an 18-year-old talent. Kind of surprised Spurs aren't in for him, as they've been looking at Scandinavia recently, haven't they? Obviously with Lucas Bergvall. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Really hope you enjoyed the episode. It's difficult being a Tottenham fan at the moment, but trying to get all of the news and rumours to you. Please do give this video a like. Like I said, I'm close to getting to 15,000 subscribers now. Please do subscribe to the channel if you like daily Premier League transfer news, always starting with Spurs. And also, please do spread the word about it to any other people who love watching, people talking about transfers and Tottenham Hotspur and the Premier League. Also, you can listen to this over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Just go over there, type in the Spurred On podcast and give me a follow and a subscribe. It really helps me out. Cheers. Enjoy your Tuesday. Goodbye.